Welcome, guys. First episode of The Ride podcast. How are y'all doing? We got Tanner Lewis, Trenton Johnson.
Doing good, man.
Doing good?
Doing well.
How did we get the honor of being first on the ride?
Well, if you want to ask me, man, I know you pretty personally, and I feel like you're my second brother now. I got a true twin brother, but you kind of turning into him. We probably look more like same height, same stature. So that's kind of.
You were gonna pull the height into it.
Oh, 100%. Dude,
I forgot your twin's huge.
Like 6'1", 6'2". My little brother's 6'4".
Remember that
6'5".
one night at Shane?
Yes.
That was fantastic.
Yes.
Was he coming to the show or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
And
To
he
see
was
him, yeah.
You were like, you gotta look out for my brother. And I was like, what does he look like? You're like, nothing like me, but huge.
And he's still, and he found you out of like 2,000 people.
Well, I'm easy because I have a camera with me.
Yeah. I'm like, hey, look for the guy with running around with the camera. I was like, if he's busy, don't bother him. If you don't know, Trenton, you're with 613 Media. You also run the Bolt here in Fort Worth, Texas. That's where we're doing this, and I'm excited. Tanner, you run Rise Music Group, management company out of Nashville and Austin. And hey, I'm one of your clients.
I know.
Dude.
Lucky enough to work with Mr. Lane Smith over here.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm excited for y'all to be on here. Like, I think the thing that I want people to get out of this is, dude, we're all on our own rides.
Totally.
Like, everybody's different in their own wavelength. What I want people to take out of it is just what we're able to do on our own journeys, like the ups and the downs, the things that we're able to accomplish, and then the struggles we have at the same time.
For sure.
So, I'll kind of start this off with me. 25. I grew up in Spring Branch, Texas, right north of San Antonio. A country music artist, and I get to do it for a living. I get to meet cool people along the way, and I mean, so I grew up rodeoing my whole life. Okay, I was 13. I stepped around my first bull. I fought bulls for 7-8 years.
You fought bulls?
Fought bulls.
Wait, hold on. Rewind. You can't just.
So
you fought bulls?
So
like, as a clown?
Yeah.
I didn't know this.
You didn't?
No. How did I miss this?
Really?
Mm-mm.
We're not joking.
And I love when people hear fought bulls and they're like the clown, and you always tell everybody first time you're like, but not the funny guy.
No.
I get three kinds. I get three kinds of answers, right?
Hey, those guys have a mission.
They're like, "Oh, you killed him." No, I don't kill him. Or the real extravagant one, "Oh, you punched him in the face." No, I don't punch bulls in the face. And then the people that actually know what's going on. So fighting bulls, when the bull rider falls off, yes, it is the guys that you see out there running circles around them.
You're basically protecting that bull rider.
Exactly.
You have a partnership with that bull rider while he's out in that arena. Huh?
That's exactly right. Straight cowboy protection.
Mm-hmm.
Now, back in the old days, they had a funny man who was also the bullfighter. So he would tell the jokes, he'd go out there, make you laugh, do whatever, and then come time bull riding, he'd step out there and he would fight bulls and protect the cowboy. It's come a long way, and now committees, which they did this a while back, but now there's strictly bullfighters to go in there, cowboy, protect, and then there's the funny man they'll hire on the side that tells the jokes and the blow-up suits and rides dirt bikes over jumps and all that stuff. So I did that. I stepped around. I was 13 or 14. I can't really remember. I'd roped too since I was little, but I really wanted to fight bulls. I wanted to be in the rough.
Roped. I don't
Yeah.
know how we missed this whole part.
Yeah. It is kind of, I don't think it was hush-hush. I think it was more of like, I was more expected to be known for fighting bulls because that's really all I did through high school. I did play lacrosse, but that's another subject, man. But
Very diverse.
yeah, I played lacrosse. That was cool.
You've got to be the first bullfighting lacrosse player.
Bull,
Probably. I was confused about that because I grew up in a little 2A town, and it was the furthest thing from my mind to have a lacrosse team. Like, we didn't have soccer or tennis or anything, much less lacrosse. Like, lacrosse to me was kind of a more city thing, but I guess, like, not in Spring Branch, Texas.
No, they started it up. Boy, our football coach hated it. He's taking all his football players.
You have to have a piece of merch that's got like rodeo and lacrosse in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, without it being confusing.
No, I think the purpose is
would
to
be.
be confusing.
I'm down. I'm down to put anything on
It's
there.
a conversation piece.
Hey,
Is that
I can talk about the dumbest things you've ever thought of in your life.
Welcome to the ride.
Welcome to the ride, everybody. So I fought bulls, yeah, and you know, I turned pro when I was 18, technically, I guess you could say. And, you know, it taught me a lot of things. It kind of put me in the limelight when I was young. So kind of moving careers over to this, I was kind of adjusted a little bit on how the spotlight works in some ways. Not that I was a shining star, but, you know, there were some news interviews or there was some autograph signings like we had to do one time for Chick-fil-A. At Chick-fil-A, they were sponsors. So when you get done at the PBRs, like the touring pros and stuff, they would set up your own autograph booth. You know, you just come down after you fight bulls and you have your posters there, sit there, sign them. So I kind of got acclimated to that. Then I decided to pick the guitar up at like 16. And, you know, it was crazy because when we were rodeoing, I lived to go to the concerts afterwards. Like that was the coolest thing for me, is to go in there, fight bulls, get done with our job, and then get to go watch a concert, you know. So I used to see back in the day, like Josh Abbott was always playing, Casey Donahue was always playing, like Randy Rogers, a bunch of those guys. So we did that, and I started moving on. And once I kind of picked the guitar up, learned it, I think the first song I ever learned was Kiss Me in the Dark, Randy Rogers. I asked my twin brother, I knew the words, but I learned how to play it, and I started singing to it. And I was like, all right, dude, honest with me. I know I'm not great, but I don't think I'm bad. And I played it for him. He was like, you're terrible. Give it up. I was like, cool. So I kind of set out on a mission for the rest of my life just to like prove him that I wasn't, maybe I wasn't great, but I wasn't terrible.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, hey, I'm not letting you win this. In the process, I fell in love doing that. I started writing my own stuff. I get out to college. I went to rodeo at Ranger, and then transferred to Tarleton, Stephenville, Texas. Shout out to all my homies there. And yeah, we went out there, and they're like, hey man, you're pretty good at that thing. You should write your own stuff. So when I started writing stuff, and they're like, hey, those are pretty good. Looking back on them, they're terrible, right? I'm like, yeah, who let me write that?
I'm pretty sure
that's good.
Anybody that creates something looks back on their first thing and goes, oh no.
Yeah.
What was I doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody please.
That's a part of the growth, though.
It is. I think that's what's cool, and that's why The Ride is a fitting name for this podcast. So, anyways, I did that, and I got moving and grooving. I was like, this is cool. Let me play in front of some people. I remember the first show I ever played, and there was a lot of people there. Not for me. It was a little background dinner deal. I don't even remember the name of the place. And I could not believe that I just sang a whole song in front of people. Like, the microphone was just so new to me, and I just couldn't believe that, like, people were hearing me that loud.
Was
like,
this your microphone? Or was this, like, venue setup?
Funny story. Straight my own setup. Knew nothing about sound. Dude, I didn't even know acoustic electric guitars took batteries. I was like, what is this? So it died one day. I'm like, man, my thing died. Like, this really nice guitar. What I
broke
thought.
my guitar.
It's like, it's not even working, man. I've had it for like 2 months. So, two days before that show, I met a guy in New Braunfels, Texas. I forget his name. Brandon something. He sold me a little PA, some cables, and a beat up SM58 mic. I mean, like, you've seen it, I think.
But you can beat up an SM58 and it's
Yeah, and it still sounds great, right? So anyways, like 2 days before, and I take it to the house, and I'm like, I'm learning this stuff, like plugging in. It just blows my mind how it's working. So I take it to the show, and yeah, plugged it in and played, and I thought it was the coolest thing I've ever done in my life.
So were these already powered speakers and stuff like that at that point, probably?
Yeah, it was just straight power cord out, so it kicked it on, but like it had a teeny little mixer in the back of it that you could like 1/4 inch and one XLR into.
That's lucky, man. I remember the first PA speakers I ever had. My dad bought them for me, and they were probably 400 pounds each. And they stack up about 8 feet tall, and they carpeted, so when you drag them into smoky environments, you get to take the smoke home with you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Dude,
Be glad you were
Take
in
the bar
the
ambiance
powered
home with you.
speaker.
And then when that thing was in college, I took it out there. Holy goodness gracious. I dropped it one night. We weren't even drinking. But it split the actual case. So like right before every show when I'd start using it, I had to push the whole thing together and set it down just right. So during the show it didn't like vibrate and start moving out because then it'd get all scratchy. And I wish I'd have kept it, but I left it at an old house that we moved out of in college. So, reeling back in here because I'm good about wandering. Yeah, so I started playing shows and I was like, man, this is cool. And then obviously when you're in college, dude, it's like they always say the girls, love that stuff, and it's like whatever. But hey, apparently if you can play guitar, so then I was like, double attracted. I'm like, hey, man, this is great. Not that they were flocking, but it was just like, hey, there's a little attention being brought. This is cool. So I finally just started working my way out of fighting bulls. Not that I wanted to hang the cleats up or nothing. I started falling in love with this, and I was like, hey, man, it's the same thing every weekend. I'm in a different town. I'm just playing on stage. I don't have to go out and, get hurt like I had got in the past, We could go through the injury list, but we don't have time. So I won't talk about the injuries, but yeah, you do get hurt rodeo, and everybody knows that. It's something you can't avoid. It's not if, it's when and how bad.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I just was like, man, this is great. So, I really took off into that. I started petering out fighting bulls, and I tried to start my own band, and I did in Stephenville. I had 4-piece band, electric bass, and me and drums, and like we just went off and we played some pretty good little venues for no management, no booking, like
So
nothing.
When would you say your first like official show was? Like full
It
band, like
was-
this is a show.
2018, we opened when Mason Lively was still coming up too.
Mhm.
Because I cut my first EP ever, so I guess I skipped over that. I cut my first EP first in 2018, titled it Honey. And we went out to the Zone studio in Dripping Springs, cut that EP. Well, the same two guys that played on my whole deal played on Mason Lively's whole deal. And that was the, is it the Stronger Ties record? Or one?
Probably.
It's Stronger Ties, like with Heavy Toll on it and all
Yeah.
that. Yeah, okay. So that whole deal was cut there, and they played on it too. And so we kind of got linked up, and I think my first full band show was with him at Cheatham Street.
Very cool. Hey, what a great spot. Like a
Yeah, and
historical
Cheatham
spot.
Street, like
Yeah.
out of everything, like all the venues we could have went and played for, at the time, dude.
I love that place. It's so
That's-
steeped in history.
Oh my gosh, like it is a tiny stage, but it is
Yeah.
like
You're
yeah,
not
you
going
just-
for the aesthetic.
Right.
You're going
No.
for the environment and for that that
exactly.
feel.
But then I get with a buddy of mine that's like, hey man, I'm booking this band out of San Marcos, Shaker Hymns.
Mm.
And he's like, I have some time for you, like I can book. So he kind of acted like as a booking agent for me when we're all in college. Like this is just BS, But hey, he did good at it. And so he got us into the Blue Light. We opened for Shaker Hymns, and hey, it was a great turnout. Like I was still in college, my buddies were still in college, so all of them came out, and Shaker pulled a pretty good crowd out there as well. So it was a great time, and so we played some really cool stuff. But I figured out pretty fast that we're all like not managing your money, and you're now all of a sudden you're an employer, and you don't really think of it like that, but you got 3 dudes to pay,
Mhm.
and that's like if you're breaking even, then like you're hoping merch gets you home, because you're not taking it. I didn't take anything out of any show we ever played. We probably played like 6 or 7 full band shows,
Mhm.
but I mean it ran me out that fast. Like there was no time. So I figured out that I had to go get a big boy job, and so I had 1 year left at Tarleton, and I was like, man, I just not for me. I'm out. Deuces. Oil field. Here I come, and moved out to the oil field. I had found my now wife, but at the time in college, I started dating her, and I'm like, man, I gotta show her I'm serious, I know I've done some bad things in my past, but I'm a good boy now. Like, I actually didn't even kiss her for 2 weeks just to prove I was a good boy. I was like, no, ma'am. She's like, hey, look, you better, like, move because I don't even think you like me. It's like, okay, here. Kissed her. So, but that sealed the deal. Like, I was just trying to be a good guy, and it really brought me back home. I was like, man, money moves the world. I gotta go make it because I have 0. And I can't keep doing this college thing anymore. I can't use that excuse because I don't want to go to school anymore.
Mhm.
Did she still have 1 more year at Tarleton at that point?
Yeah, she had a year and a half left. She's in the nursing program.
Right.
So,
Mhm.
yeah, it was gonna be literally that make or break it move.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna move, go make money, and like this is gonna work, or it's not.
So do you think like you moving and going to make money, like she had to be like torn between you going off to the oil field and staying in school
Oh.
with her, you know, like
For sure.
It was one of those deals. It was like I was going out there to make money to show her that okay, because I'm not gonna finish school, I'm gonna go show you I can be stable.
For sure.
That was my point of view. And it was just in Midland, so from Stephenville it's only like 3 hours, 3.5 hours. It's really not that bad. So every weekend I was just coming back, besides the one time I had to stay up there on call. But that was like my ploy. It was like, I'll show you I can be stable. Little did I know now, right, with the struggles of money as far as like the music industry. But
Oh, yeah.
at the time, you know, I was like, look, I can go be stable and like this is what I'll do. That I just had my mind. I was tapped out of the music stuff, you know, like I thought that turn was like my shot to make it. The 7 full band shows and a couple acoustic performances. Like I was like, I missed it. I'm done. There's no way. I screwed up, man. Never gonna be an artist again. So I was like, I'll still write. I'll still sing, but like I'm not gonna do it full time. And so that's kind of where it was all like mixed at the time. So I go out there. And I'm starting to play things on and off every now and then, you know, like post them on Instagram or whatever. In my mind, I'm done. I'm like, I'm just doing this for fun now. And I get a message towards the end of my time. I think I'd been there almost a year. And I got a message. Or no, I just quit. And I had just moved back to Stephenville. There's a bunch that went on during that time. She was happy because I was no longer 3.5 hours away. But then I was out of the music. I was doing like, I moved to a superintendent job. That's right. I moved to a superintendent job at a construction crew. My life's messed up, everybody, in the best of ways. But we moved down to Poth, Texas, if you know where that's at, south of San Antonio, right south of Floresville. Was running 2.5 hours every day to be at jobs at 6:30 to do road crew work, right? And then Tanner popped in my DMs and was like, hey, you know, I think you're talented, you know, like, if you want to meet up, let's meet up. I'm curious about what's going on in your life. And I was like, cool, let's do it, you know? But when you're already been through the little bit of it already, I'm like, man, there's so many people that tell you they can do things.
Sure.
You know, like, I know this person, trust me, come work with me. Like, it's just like, I have plenty of stories about that. And nobody ever pulled through. That or they ghosted me. And I was like, I'm over that. So, came into it pretty suspicious with him. But I was like, hey, he's the first guy, though, that was actually like, let's meet here and have dinner. Like, let's talk. It's cool. So we meet at Texas Roadhouse in San Marcos, Texas. I don't know, when was that? Like mid 2021?
it was right before
You
I
got married. That's right.
So it was probably March.
March, yeah.
Yeah.
Because April you got married too.
Yep. Yeah.
What was the date you was wedding again?
April 2nd.
April 2nd. Yeah.
You put me on the spot, huh?
I didn't even think about it, but I did too. Trenton, what's your wedding date?
6/13. It'd be very hard to forget that one.
Yeah, literally was 6/13/6/13. So
That was on purpose because we couldn't be forgetting.
we're not gonna get into anniversaries or birthdays. No, that's not-
No.
We're just talking surface level stuff here. But so yeah, I do remember he was like, that's I think why I got so suspicious of you, is because before we ever met, we were talking a little bit, and he's like, "What'd you say?" You were like, "Hey man, I want to meet up with you, but like I'm just about to get married." Is that how it worked? Or was that?
Yeah, I was
before?
going on my bachelor party.
Your bachelor
And
party.
I was like, I can't meet up for a few weeks. I'm going on my
Yeah,
bachelor
and so
party.
right there, I was like, dude, this guy ain't calling me back.
He's
This is some
done.
bullshit. This guy is not calling me back. Whatever, screw it. I'll just stay working on asphalt my rest of my life. Finally gets back off from this bachelor party. Sure enough, he hits me up, and I'm like, wow, okay, cool. So we go eat at Texas Roadhouse, and we had a good conversation. We met eye to eye on a lot of things, and he was kind of showing me the track record he had with some other artists, and I'm like, damn, all right, so maybe he knows a lot. And we kind of agreed on a lot.
Like for your first.
Yeah, agreed on a whole bunch and like certain things, and it worked out. So we left that conversation. I think we were just like, hey, let's just stay in touch. Like, you were pretty much like, send me what you got. Let's see what you're working on.
Yeah.
And let's go from there. And then, I mean, fast forward, it has been a whirlwind. And then we met you, like, not even I think it was like 2 months after we had. No, we weren't even working. We didn't even officially sign papers yet the first time we with him, right?
Yeah, we
'Cause-
probably did because we had.
What's weird is me and him had known each other how long?
Years. Like,
Yeah, a couple years. And then he told me that he was signing you.
Yeah.
And I was like, awesome.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that was kind of where all that started.
Right.
Because I had already gone out and shot some stuff for you and a couple other artists of his. And then whenever he told me about you, I was like, man, that's cool. And
Yeah.
so that was when what was the first thing?
We came up to Fort Worth and shot at your buddy's studio.
Oh, yeah.
Before
Yeah.
you had
The
the
dark
bowl.
room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Photo shoot.
And we're just cutting a few acoustic things. Really, like, I mean, it was so interesting working with Lane because when I signed him, like, you had an Instagram that was kind of developed, but nothing else, right?
Yeah.
It was like
Oh.
there was no Facebook, there was no website, there was
That's
no
good.
there was no YouTube.
Blank slate.
Yeah,
Press play.
and it was, and so I called you and I was like, hey, we gotta get some content on this guy. Like, he's good, but we need to cut as many videos and as many photos as we can in one day.
100%. He's like, what's your Facebook password? I'm like, dude, I don't know. I made that in like 2009. Like, he's like, okay, so we'll start over. I'm like, all right, cool. Dude, I never had a Twitter either. So yeah, we come up and shoot. I remember driving up we're coming to Fort Worth, and I'm like, we're shooting with 613, and he's like, yeah, and I'm like, no shit. He's like, yeah, and I'm like, I love that guy. I've been following Trenton for.
Because I
Golly.
guess I just told you my buddy Trenton was shooting your photos.
Yeah,
or something,
I
probably.
he
Wow,
never,
that's funny.
he
That's
never
funny.
come across the 613, and I find out all on the way, and now I'm nervous. Like, I'm like, shit, dude, I've been following you for like 2 years. I've been following you, and I was like,
And you get there and it's like, what a
and
letdown.
I negative. I was pumped. Like, I saw the video stuff you were pumping out. I mean, golly, if you went way back on my Instagram, if you're listening, please don't do this, but there's a video that I had a buddy of mine make that was a blue light recap, and I was like, dude, look at the quality of this video, right? And I'm like, look back on it now, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Well, and those first photos are still some of my favorite ones we've
Mhm.
done. I think it's still the whole backdrop for the website and stuff. It's,
Oh yeah, no, I'm talking. This is before you. This is like when I played at Blue Light,
Right,
like
yeah.
way back in the
But I'm
day.
saying, like, the first stuff
Oh,
we did
dude.
with Trenton.
And
turned out
that's the
killer.
thing. Like, I had been following you because I'm like, man, this guy's pumping out gold. I'm like, but I can't afford him. Like, no way. I was like, I'm not even gonna hit him up. I know I'm not gonna be able to afford that guy. And then he's like, yeah, we're shooting with him. I'm like, get out of town. So I get there and I'm like, let's go. And I'm thinking, well, because you were shooting literally all my favorite guys at the
That's
time.
cool.
Like from Sam and Parker and Cole. Like all these guys were so hot and prominent. And I was like, I get to meet this guy. So I get there and I remember like, man, boy, you better sing your ass off because Trenton's here.
That was
You
fun.
better sing good for him. So
Trenton's here and he showed up not knowing we were doing videos because I didn't tell him. I was like, hey, let's do a photo shoot. And then we got there and I was like, hey, can we do videos? You're probably like, that's a whole different gear package, but we'll make it work.
Hey,
Let's go.
we figured it out.
and I remember I think you were super generous on the invoice for that. Golly. I was like, thank goodness, because I didn't know what was coming. I'd never worked with anybody of quality like that before. So yeah, we get all this right. We all meet each other, and I'm starting to see pretty quick that Tanner knows what he's doing. Like every guy he says he knows him. He's got him on speed dial, and if he doesn't truly like is not super personable, like what's the word I'm looking for? If he doesn't truly know them like as a best friend, he'll be like, yeah, I've talked to him 4 or 5 times, right? Like, but I can definitely hit him up or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's where it started to like move things for me, and then getting with you, and I was like, oh man, he's making moves. And the next thing you know, he's like, we got to start thinking about cutting new songs, and he wraps me up with Saxman Studios in Nashville, and at the time I'd heard Chad Cook's, is it Without You? Is that the name of that song? That single? Oh, Whatever It Takes. Whatever It Takes.
Yeah, that's the one.
Do
you got.
whatever it takes. All right, so I heard that. I'm like, where did that song come out? He's like, that's Saxman Studios. I'm like, oh, sold. Like, love the sound coming out of there. So this is all within like 4 months. Like, all this was moving fast, and I'm funding it all at the time. You know, like, I don't know any different. I had a little bit saved up from just the previous stuff, and I'm like, yeah, let's go it. balls to the wall, let's go. But then I really started to realize, like, oh my gosh, this is very expensive if you do it right.
Yeah.
Which, that's the biggest takeaway from my first EP ever was you have to spend the money to do things right.
Mm.
It's like camera gear. I mean, obviously you get what you can afford off the start. But if doable, which I think everything's doable, I think there's just excuses to go around it. But if everything's doable, but you have to be able to pay for the good stuff, right? I feel like correct me here, Trenton. Even with a not so great camera, if you're able to have editing skills, like if you can run a camera in general, I feel like you have that brain that's just like,
Yeah.
oh, I can make it look good.
There's a bunch of cool YouTube videos out there where it's like they'll hand somebody like a brand new beginner, like
Yeah.
a $10,000 camera, and then they'll hand like someone who's been shooting for years, like a $100, $200 camera.
Right.
And they make them make the same video, and it's really fun because like you get to see like a lot of its technique, a lot of its experience. And
Yeah.
It's something that yes, gear is super important. Would never knock that. Just like music though.
Yeah.
I feel like gear is something that people ask all the time. It's like, what do you shoot with? And or what about this? And I feel like it's something that's just ever changing, kind of like music.
Yeah.
Like every year, it's like they come out with a new mic, they come out with a new this, they come
Right.
out with a new that, and it's like if you want to stay on that cusp, you know, keep rocking and rolling with the new tech
Yeah.
and kind of upgrading and upgrading. But that's where it starts getting expensive when you start talking about buying gear, and especially for y'all, because y'all's jumps are so big. I
Yeah.
feel like you go from, I could be way off on this, but I feel like it's like acoustic, and then it's like, well, now I want to do merch. It's like, well, if I do merch, I
Yeah.
carry a trailer. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, now I want ears. Well, you
Ear
gotta
rig.
have ear rig and stuff in the trailer, and it's just like it grows so fast for musicians, and that's something that's been like all the guys I've worked with. I watch like people jump. You know, it's like I went from this white van, now I'm in a Sprinter with a trailer, and then you know as it grows, it's like oh now I'm in a Prevost and whatever, and it's crazy.
And that's what I think
Y'all have way more
boils
gear.
down to doing it right.
Totally.
Because that's kind of the determining factor. I mean, obviously, if you have something go viral overnight and then everybody's looking at you, but the determining factor to me is the good product that moves stuff quicker, right?
Well,
Like-
if there's nowhere for them to go afterwards, you know, like
Yeah.
you got to have some good product out there, or else that first little pop doesn't do you any good
Yeah.
because they didn't have anything to follow up on.
Yeah, and that was the biggest thing for us was like, you know, I had been on this like little dry spell for what, 20, so 2.5 years, like hadn't really pumped much out. I was like, we got to spend the money. I mean, he's like, you know, we have to do it like this because it has to look great coming back in. You have to like
Totally.
rejuvenate the crowd back into everything. I think a lot of people were excited when we did that.
I think musicians underestimate a lot that the fact that when you start this, it's not just you playing music. You are your business,
Yes,
and just like any other business, you got to dump money into it normally to get it rolling.
man, I'm telling you what, that's kind of like part of the whole struggle bus is, I mean, especially for me last year, like we were doing a lot, just Tanner and I. I mean, like literally, I was struggling to buy a Gatorade. You know, literally, like saw a penny heads up. I'm like, it's 1 more cent to $1, baby. Let's go. So, you have to make the sacrifice to it,
Totally.
which is really hard, but it all comes to the success, growth, and how fast you're talking. It happens for musicians. I feel like, you know, sometimes if there's 1 foot in, 1 foot out, the process is gonna stop. But that's with any business.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're just willing to go, okay, dude, like I'll make rent. I don't know how, but I'll make it. That's all I was doing last year. It's like, okay, I'll make it, you know, but I'll figure out how to, because I know this has to be paid for. And to me, I've saw like the growth process over that. I mean, like you said, we're able now to have the ear rack and a van and a trailer and like cool things that are more valuable to the success and the productivity of what we're doing.
Totally.
But it was that whole last year, like plenty of conversations with Tanner where I'm just like, dude, I'm like, I can't afford that. And he's like, man, he's like, yeah, well, I'm like, yeah, we have to figure it out, right? I'm like, what do? I can't just sit here and think about it. That's not gonna make me nothing. So hard work pays off.
Yeah.
I guess it's kind of the gist of that. I mean,
Well, like
totally.
without those hard times, like we'd be 2 years behind. It's all compounding effect, you know. When you kind of go into this and like you're giving it all you got, we got here 3 times faster than we would have otherwise. And as much of a struggle as that probably was, imagine how burnout you would be if you did that for 3 years at a slower pace. You know,
Totally.
like
Respect to all the bands that do.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Oh
there's-
golly.
Oof, I've seen some bands grind through some stuff, and man, major respect.
I dude, oh man, yeah. It's one of the, it's like a touchy thing for me because I know, like, I'm blessed, kind of like where we're at. How I mean, all this has been done for me, and golly, I'm learning every day. Like, I make wrong decisions all the time. Like, there's nothing that I don't do everything right at all, and I'm still learning. There's things that I'm like, holy cow, what?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But if Tanner and I recapped it, and I'm like, dude, if we look back from the time we started to where we're at now, is like, it's pretty whack, you know? Like, and there's a bunch of guys doing it, you know, so we're not any more stand out than anybody doing it. It's just like, but we are doing it.
Totally.
And that's the fun thing. Like, I'd much rather be doing this than a 9 to 5. Like, I can't wrap my head around 9 to 5s. If you do them and you love them, hey, kudos to you. Like, nothing against them. But me, how I'm wired, I'm not doing that. Like, I don't like being told what to do and when to be where. I'm
True.
like, let me do this and let's go have fun doing it, but make it make sense. So what we've done in a year and a half is pretty cool. A lot of cool things, and that's also to you. You're making all this good product for us, and now we're sitting here having a podcast. Like, look at what a year's time does, right?
True. It's crazy thinking back like to the first music video.
Was it Ain't It Crazy?
Mhm.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Golly.
Dude, didn't you roll up to that music? Talk about down luck. Didn't you pull up to that music video with a broke window?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You had a trash bag.
Yeah.
That-
Oh man.
That was right in the middle of that good year too, where you were making all that money.
Yeah, baby.
Well, that was after the truck got stolen and then got a new truck and
Oh,
the second truck
golly.
got broken into. It was a year.
So the kind of summed up story for that whole, it was a long story, but the very short version was my first full band crack out show. We were kicking back into things after Tanner and I had met. I hadn't played a live show in who knows how long. We get a hold of Kyle Park's team. They approve us to play with them at Floor's Country Store. The day of the show, driving my wife took my truck and the dogs, gonna take them to the hotel to drop them off. We were gonna go play at the venue, come back, take them. She calls me on the way to sound check. She's like, "Hey, your truck's gone." I'm like, "What do you mean it's gone?" She's like,
Where was
like
it?
your truck's not here. North side San Antonio, right?
Like an
where
apartment lot or your house?
La Quinta,
Oh,
North side San Antonio. Dude, steal my truck, the dogs, everything.
I
Gone.
stole the dogs.
All of them. Every one of them. So she's like, "I don't know what to do." She's like, "I'm freaking out." I'm like, well, my brain's like in slow motion because I'm like, well, what do I say? I'm like, well, did you call the cops? She's like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, you need to call the cops. Don't call me.
Get off the phone with me. Call the cops.
And I'm like thinking about this all sound check. I'm on and off with phone calls, and like I looked up to Kyle Park as a younger guy, so I'm like, oh, this is a wreck. Like, he's never gonna want us back. Blah blah blah. Like, literally middle of sound check, get a phone call. They found 2 of our dogs on the south side of San Antonio. So, anyways, we got 2 dogs back. Never found the 3rd one. And that whole deal, yeah, it was transported down south, and they ended up finding it after a chase or something, supposedly.
Holy
So I get that.
moly.
I get
Yeah.
that Dodge, little 1500 to
Uh-huh.
run around in. Note to self: F350s, F250s in San Antonio, and I'm pretty sure Houston, Dallas, like all the major hubs, pretty easy target to hit. They do get stolen a lot. So
You know what's crazy? They stole my brother's F-250 in San Antonio and drove it to Mexico.
Yep.
same, bro.
Yep.
Fist pound him. I know
Yep.
what you're feeling, bro. So I had to get a little runaround truck just to get to and from. Got a little runaround truck, no AC, no radio. It's great. Middle of summertime, no worries, right? 2 weeks later, after getting that truck, we go to watch the Houston Rodeo in last March, Park McCollum. And we get out of the hotel one morning, and I'm walking to the truck. Thank goodness I had taken like all the gear out because I played a show the night before at the Rustic. Took all the gear out, and I'm like, man, my back window looks weird. And I get to the other side of the truck, broke into that truck 2 weeks after my other one was found, right? And I'm like, dude, this sucks. Like, what kind of luck is this?
And didn't take nothing but
Any-
what?
All my rodeo fellas and gals out there. The only thing they stole was my cowboy hat I've been through a bunch of cowboy hats in my lifetime. I will say that one I did plan on like saving just to have for like a little boy if I have a little boy one day or a girl. Like that's the only thing because that was from my college rodeo days. I was like,
Dang.
dude, this is gonna be awesome. So they broke
That's
in,
rough.
like didn't take my AirPods, didn't take didn't take any of my merch, didn't take my sunglasses, right? They just broke them, but they didn't take them. They
Broke 'em?
they broke the right earpiece off. And just, I don't know if it was in the mix of things, but they didn't take them. Just took the cowboy hat. But I will tell you, and every guy out there knows, and girl knows this, if I saw that hat to this day, I know exactly what it is.
Oh, yeah.
I could pick it out.
Totally.
I know how I shape them, what sweat marks were on it, what brand it was. I know everything. You're not hiding it from me.
Yeah.
So better hope you threw it away, because I will find you. So that was the, and then yeah, so we roll up, you just, terrible luck, roll up, you're like, what happened? Like, I got broke into. You know, so
Dang,
that was
bro,
a
I didn't
whole
realize all that had happened.
story
Yeah.
within its own. And I don't know. It made it tough,
What a
but
mess.
And now we've been through 3 music videos.
Yep.
Keep getting ready to do the 4th.
Yep.
No spoiler alerts on dates or anything, but new music in the works and a new music video in the works.
keep
Yes.
you all guessing about this, boy.
It's gonna be a good one.
Ooh, are we shooting it? When are we shoot? I don't know. What's the name of it? Nobody knows. So, yeah, we shoot that video with you, and yeah, we're what 3, 4, like we said, videos into it now. We just had one of the singles in the video that you shot, "Clear Your Mind," make it on CMT Network, which is
Nice.
sweet. I mean, it's driving the views up pretty good for us, and I think right now where I'm at as far as a career goes is the most valuable time I've seen so far because now I'm starting to see like that money pay off.
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting to see some views go up, a couple of followers here and there. You know, I'm starting to see things that make sense on how a business works. And if I look back to it, it doesn't feel like it's been a year and a half. And it feels like it's been way longer than that, right? Like I feel like it's been forever, but it just everything was like so compound to me. Like some people were like, "Oh, it flew by," and it flew by, but it felt like it was extra long because of like the struggle you kind of had to go through.
What I feel like, at least for our team, like you're always wanting to go faster, right? So you're like looking around at what's been happening, and you're like, "That was great. What's next?"
Yeah.
You know? And I remember a few weeks ago we were in Nashville walking back to the condo from lunch, and we were like faster, faster, faster. I was like, wait a minute, the last year and a half's been pretty good.
Mhm.
So take a few seconds to like pat yourself on the back, or at least like
Acknowledge that.
realize.
You gotta stop long enough. I've always been a firm believer in this. You gotta stop long enough to enjoy a little part of it, because if not, it's hard to find that like boost to keep going,
Yeah.
especially when times get rough.
Yeah.
But not like crazy, but like, you know, a little day here and there just to unwind, like a flat line on the brain, you know,
Yeah.
just kind of go chill. And I think that's
100%.
healthy. Gets
Yeah.
you set back to where you're supposed to be.
Well,
Lets you
and
be
too,
creative
like,
again.
for my brain, like it's tough to look day to day. You know, like I've got to look big picture. I've got to really like remove myself from the situation
Interesting.
because I feel like I'm so in it all the time, 24/7. That like unless I'm like, okay, January 1 to January 1, I don't see the days in between.
And that is why you manage artists.
Dude.
Because
we're-
I could not be more opposite.
Really.
If-
I'm day by day. Because if
Really?
not, I feel like I get overwhelmed. Especially, I think it's when creative comes in. For example, like if I know I'm shooting a music video or something, my brain is so like, I try to be so present with that music video
Yeah.
that I have to shut off. If I'm looking out weeks in advance trying to do this video, I mess with myself sometimes because like, I feel like to get that, just how you want it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of mull it around, throw some ideas at it, whatever.
Right.
I kind of, when I have stuff like that coming up, I like to be one track minded until it's done.
Have you ever assigned your brain percentages? Like, I mean, because you've got a very split job where you are a business owner and you're running your own business, but you're still, your business is so successful because you have that creative side to your brain. Like,
Mhm.
do you think you work more creative or more business minded, or?
See, that's something that's funny. My background, before I started all this, I was the director of marketing for 2 separate companies. And one was an environmental company, one was a tech company, and I learned very much, not the creative. I learned why stuff worked, the analytics, the fancy numbers behind everything. And turns out I hated that.
Yeah.
But what I did take away from it was why stuff worked, understanding the engagement, that worked, that didn't, A to B testing, that kind of stuff. And that was kind of where actually the creative was born, because I was deprived of that creative at that other job. And so when I got my hands on creative, it was like that itch I was never scratching. It was like,
Yeah.
that's what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
But I will say, I think the hardest part sometimes is I just want to sit and create,
Yeah.
but you can't do that.
That's
It's just like you probably like, just let me sit and write music. However, you realize you want to be successful, you want to get out there, you have to tend to all the little things too, the social medias, the shows, the fans, the whatever you're on at the time. And so I feel like when I meet people in this industry, it's very evident, because I always joke that people have two brains. You know,
Yeah.
you're either like hyper creative,
Yeah.
and the business comes very hard,
Mm-hmm.
or people are very business oriented and the creative is lacking. And from the beginning, that's probably been one of my ultimate focuses, was like, how do I be a hybrid to where I'm not just like
Yeah.
so creative or just so business.
Well,
But-
you've got to have both, but like you do favor one. We definitely are opposite in that aspect. I mean, like I did the artist thing for forever, paid my way through college doing the artist thing, but I realized that I didn't find joy in writing songs. I found joy
Yeah.
in running the business, booking
Totally.
shows, and doing that type of thing. And
Totally.
you know, and so I'm the opposite, and where like he'll have to pull my teeth to get me to weigh in on a song or something like that, where because that's while that's still got 20% of my brain, like
Yeah.
it's not where I enjoy putting it,
Yeah.
So several days in a row he would just ask me like, you want to sit in on this co-write with me and like join the writing session. I'm like, no, I want to take my MacBook and go downstairs to the lobby and send emails.
And I'm
Like,
asked
that's-
her about it. I'm like, but you're my manager, you motherfucker.
It's
I'm
like, but I'm not
like,
even creative.
I'm like, hey, no, you're gonna sit. You're like, no, man. Like, this is you. So yeah, I get
Like
it.
I get that. That's not my place anymore.
Well, that was kind of like, that's where the studio came from. Like, when we were trying to do this, obviously, the creative side of me was very much trying to take over, and all I was trying to think was, how do I make it cool?
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, we need it to be functional, we need it to be suitable for more than just music videos, like, it's gotta be diverse. So that was definitely, this has been probably the biggest challenge of my career, was trying to get the studio rolling, just because I love being on the road, but I knew I didn't want to be like 65 on the road with kids and having to go back
Yeah.
out and do that. And so I was like, what's a long term? How do I get to something that's like, because like in my industry, everything is very, you want it, you have to make it. You know, I don't
Yeah.
get paid, so it's like here.
Right.
And so this was the first venture that probably has ever been super stable, where it's
Yeah.
like, not mailbox money, we're definitely still here running it, but it's cool to be able to come in here, have people come in and do stuff, and still be
Yeah.
making money without
People
having
are coming to you over it now,
Yeah.
using what you're being able to provide. Right? You're not having to like go.
It takes
to,
a freaking leap of faith, though. I mean,
It
just
does,
the same
golly.
thing as you like hoping that you can make rent so that we can go record another song, to like you signing this lease on this big giant building in Fort Worth and being like, it's not making any money like it is right now, so we're gonna have to make this thing make income.
Totally.
And I think one, your track record. If you don't know 613 Media, I'll plug you here real fast. Like
Oh no.
the Bolt in Fort Worth, it's literally theboltfw.com. Is that what it is?
They can check out what is done here at
Yes.
your YouTube channel at your last music video.
Oh yeah, my Something in the Air, the single, was shot in the Black Room.
Yep.
And
Full band.
so,
Full band.
like this man here, everybody, Trenton is prestigious. I mean, you've shot for like everybody, I feel like, but Cole Parker. You were with Shane Smith just a while back. You've shot all Sam stuff. You're with Charlie Crockett. I mean, like Tanner Usry. Like, dude, you've seen that side of the industry probably more than I ever will, because.
Whatever.
But I mean, you were with Shane Smith when they were on the Whiskey Myers tour, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
so you're
this
like,
summer.
you're at Red Rock. and
Yeah,
all
we did
that?
Red
Like,
Rocks. That was definitely bucket list, coolest day, hands down, front to back.
Was that your first time at that venue?
First time
Oh golly,
I had been itching to do it for a while.
Yeah.
you
We
got
actually-
spoiled.
And
That's
it was
awesome.
kind of a tease because back when I was rolling with Parker, we had a offer. I think it was Parker opening for Turnpike, and it was on the books. And then when everything happened with Turnpike originally, it was one of the shows that kind of dissipated, and I was like,
Wow.
no.
Yeah.
I was
golly.
so stoked. But I will say the way we did it this time was cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it was magical. It was Reed Southall opened, and then Shane played, and then Whiskey Myers closed it out. It was sold out to the gills on a Monday night. It was spiritual. Very cool show.
And this brings me to my whole point of how you're able to do that. And something I wanted to talk about is, and something I'm still getting better at, networking. You didn't get in that position by sitting in your house and doing just random things on the computer.
Right.
Now, you were out for a while making moves and shooting stuff really when you started off for free. Like you have to make the sacrifice, where I feel like artist standpoint, you have to put the money into it. Manager standpoint, you have to be glued to your phones and your computers. You have to send the emails. You have to there's
There
this
is-
huge networking.
There is no difference between me and you when it comes to getting started, because
Yeah.
I did my first show for 2 shirts and a hat. You know, not even money.
That's
And so when you start talking about,
Yeah.
going out and playing those shows that are good publicity, but you might be, we're not bringing home no money. It's worth it, but it's like that trade, when you're getting rolling of like exposure versus income.
Yeah.
And sometimes you got to bridge that's worth it, even though I'm not like making a ton of money. And so yeah, I definitely think getting started, that feels like a crazy balance.
It's a crazy ride, isn't it?
Crazy
Dude, I've been
ride.
there, baby.
Somebody
Woo-wee.
should name a podcast that.
RIDE, hosted by Lane Smith. I think, and I wanted to kind of do this in general. I've been wanting to do this for a while. So thank you for letting us use this space. Probably shoot everything I ever do here, and we come here a lot. But I wanted to start this podcast because there's so many ways, and I don't want people just to take it out of the music industry. I want them to take it out of just everything. We come in here, we bullshit a little bit, but at the same time, we talk about points that we're being able to do what we love, and it's a journey, it's a ride. Nothing's easy. You're not just handed money. I think I've tried to get handed money one time. I was like, oh dude, this will work. I forget what I did. I was in college and I was trying to sell something. I'm like, oh, these will sell. I forget what it was. Not drugs. Never done drugs. So don't put your heads in bad places.
Well, we weren't thinking drugs, so you
So
brought
I
it up.
said it. It was it was some little leather deal. I was trying to make them. I didn't even tell my roommates about it because I didn't even believe in it. But I'm like, dude, this is it's gonna sell good. And I sat there for a week or two, hoping it would make some money, and I didn't make anything. I didn't even sell one, and I threw them away. It's that's embarrassing because if somebody asked me, it would have been terrible. So you never handed nothing. You have to go out and get it. And that's kind of what I like talking about. And hey, man, I get on these weird tangents where we start talking about weird things. And I probably have 2 guys with me that bring me back to center more than anybody I've met.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Is after all the radio tours and all the times up and down the road, I have no doubts about this podcast being entertaining if you keep doing it, because
Totally.
there's no boring days with Lane Smith.
No.
Our radio tour, I think touring in general usually goes Tanner's in the passenger seat. He is on his computer
AirPods
with
in.
his AirPods in. Boy, I just told him my life story 5 times. And he's just, yep, okay. But hey, that's what keeps me going. As long as I think he's listening.
Well, and I mean,
I'm gonna sit
so the Lane's favorite thing to talk about up and down the road is football.
Oh.
And I'm not a sports guy. I'm only music. I couldn't tell you what team Drew Brees plays for, or if he's even still in the league.
That's impressive.
You know? So
Oh, yeah.
He'll talk to me for hours on end about football.
We're talking college ball here, right? And I do like the NFL, but I love college football. And he's like, oh yeah, Peyton Manning? I'm like, nah, he's retired from the NFL. He's like, yeah, no, I knew that, Joe Montana. I'm like, dude, no.
Those are old.
So he acts, he's at least throwing something not relevant, but acting like he's within the conversation, so that's always pretty good. The stories and the stuff you get from the roads, I am so new really to the touring world. You know, I've gotten a little taste of it here towards the end of the year, which has been great. And I think we're starting to get noticed a little more, which is awesome. I mean, things are moving a little bit.
So 2 things for you. 1, why the name The Ride? And
Yeah.
2, what can we expect? Like, you know, I know this
Yeah,
is the
yeah.
first episode, but what else can we expect from the podcast?
So the ride was because I think when we all go after something in life, it doesn't matter what you do, there's a journey to it. There's ups, there's downs, there's a lot of money, there's all of a sudden no money, there's ways of going about things, and it's finding essentially what you love to do. Like, just go be happy, do your own thing, but if you can make it work, like, I'm interested in how people made it work for themselves, and with a couple, you know, bullshit stories on the side that's funny and great to listen to. And I think that's the most intriguing thing to me is, like, everybody from, like, industry people to influencers to people that just run businesses that I'm buddies with or that I rodeoed with. Like, I want to be able to bring them on and be like, well, road to the NFR, dude. How'd you do it?
Cool.
Like, what? Like, that wasn't easy, you know? That's a ton of rodeos a year just to make. And then you have to you have to win money at them just to be eligible. Like, you have to rank yourself. So I want to learn a lot. I think I'm going to learn more about this, about people, than I think they're going to get out of it from me, but I hope it's 50-50.
That's the goal, right? Aren't you bringing people on here so that you can learn?
Yeah.
And learn about them, let the people learn about them, figure out what they're doing. I
Yeah.
think that's the cool part.
If you had to name 3 future guests who kind of just in a dream world, if we're looking at this in 5 years, these 3 people cannot be part of your next 10 episodes.
For
'Cause
sure.
I want them to be long shots.
Yeah.
Like, who's the 3 you'd love to have?
Dude, long shot, Hardy.
All right.
I would just, like, love to pick that guy's brain on just, I mean,
That's a good one.
like, he's beyond, like, the songwriting and the artist deal. Like, I want to learn what he did. A number 2, I would love to have. I have a lot of buddies that have made the NFR, so I don't think it's, like, super far fetched. But I would love to bring on, like, Trevor Brazil, I think he's from Denton, or lives there now. He's from somewhere, but I mean, he's like 26-time world champ or something crazy, like,
He's the
just
best.
insane. And you know, because he knows that market so
He's
well.
a good dude too, man. We actually
Really
went to a party at his house, I guess.
Who
Last
do
year.
you not know? How
Yeah.
do you not know?
Alicia, one of my buddies, the one that we threw the benefit bash for.
Yeah.
He knew Trevor Brazil super well, and so we actually went over there for a party, and that was the first time I really got to, like, sit and talk to him.
Yeah.
Man, he is cool people. Like,
Yeah.
he's a legend, obviously, but it's cool because, like, you know, the rodeo world was definitely not my first, like, love or anything. I'm still learning a ton about it.
Yeah.
But it was cool because, like, the easiest way someone described it to me was like, you know how George Strait is to the music world? That's Trevor Brazil.
Yes.
He was like, he's the most decorated person, like, doing
As
it.
far as
ever.
titles are concerned,
Totally.
and multi-events. But the reason I didn't say, I would have said Rob Smets off the start, but he married me.
Right.
So I can't really, I mean, like, I could be like, hey, Rob, do you think we can make some time to do this? So I know I could get him.
Right.
If you don't know Rob Smets, he's, in my opinion, the best bullfighter that ever walked on planet Earth, broke his neck 3 times.
Holy moly.
I mean, like, mentored me all through my career. So, like, that guy, yeah. But I think I could get him on this podcast and we could talk. I mean, like I said, he married me. Great guy as well. But, and then the third person, making me think a little bit here. I would love to have, I think, to pick the brain of, like, one of the Nelk boys.
Okay.
Like, honestly, I want to hit this from, like, all different sides. I want to hit it from the music industry, the rodeo industry, and then, like, the Nelk boys, how they are Full Send, you know, like, how they marketed that brand. I would love to sit and pick and hear their stories and pick their brains on, like, what they did to make that so successful, right? Those would be, like, 3 top people I think that would be sweet to come in here. That's pulling some strings. I think mainly for those guys because they're so busy with what they do.
They got some big dogs on there.
They'd be like, oh, cool story though. I follow this guy, Blue Gabe, on YouTube. He does like hunting and fishing and stuff. I love that stuff. And he followed me back on Instagram the other day. Right, he's got like 700,000 subs on YouTube. Like he's doing great, and he loves, and he's big on Instagram too. And he follows me back, and I'm like, hey Tanner, I really want to message him, but I don't want to be like fanboying, you know. And he's like, dude, just hit him up. So I was like, hey man, really appreciate like following me, like love your stuff, like so fanboy. Tried to make it not sound fanboy, but I was like, I really love your stuff, man. If you're ever in Texas, like I'd love to do something. He replied back one, and I was like, wow, this is insane. He's like, man, I might be down there in January. He's like, but if not, I can maybe set something up in February. And I was like, win-win. All right.
That's cool.
So I'm pumped about that. Like, he's a cool guy, does what I like to do, and I don't know. I just like that kind of stuff. But I don't ever want to be too fanboy. I'm not the guy to ever go ask for a picture or nothing like that. And I don't want to make it seem. I'm a big UFC fan. So
that was the most giddy I've seen you. Is
Oh,
when you saw.
Michael Chandler.
Yeah, I don't watch UFC either, but.
Dude, Michael Chandler. We're in Nashville. Walked down to get some food at Broadway. Long story short, I look to my left. There he is. I'm like, oh shit. Do I tap him on the shoulder?
You sure don't punch him in the face.
Dude. I was like, gosh, how do I go about this? I really want to tell him that I think he's awesome. But, so, I mean, like, I'm literally contradicting myself saying, like, I'm not the one to do that. Which I'm not, but he was right there. I mean, like, right there. And I was like, golly, I got to.
Totally.
So I was like, hey, Mike. I was like, hey, I don't need a picture. I was like, I appreciate what you do. I shook his hand. He's like, oh man, thanks. And but I had just watched one of his fights, and he like totally just murdered this guy and whatever. But no, hey, I love watching people.
That's not fangirling though.
No, but I mean, yeah,
there's definitely a way to handle those situations where I feel like it turns weird real fast.
Yeah, I could have been like, hey, let me get a picture. Oh my gosh! But I was just like, hey, dude, like appreciate what you do. That stuff's like wild. So yeah, definitely don't punch him in the face. But I do like watching people get punched in the face when they're fighting. Like when it's regulated and they're sitting out there in the cage. Hey, throw some legs, throw some kicks, some elbows. No headbutts. That'd be cool.
I was with my buddy Trey Rose when we were in Nashville, and this truck pulled up in front of us at the airport, and Luke Combs got out and was dropping his wife off, and he's sitting there and he looks and he goes, oh my gosh, that's Luke Combs. And I was like, say something. He goes, I don't want to be weird. And he goes, oh, I got this. Man, I know you are not Luke Combs. And I was like, that's a pretty easy way. And he just turned around, like, smiled and waved, and we were just like, have a good fight, man. But it was just very funny, because that's a good way to handle it.
We were sitting at the last whiskey jam, outdoor whiskey jam this year. When was that? What month was that?
October.
October, was it?
Yeah.
Cold in Nashville. And yeah, Colby Covington like walks to the front and they let him in. I was like, oh, fanboy again, dude, golly.
Yeah.
So
well, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say. So you said you had some questions for us.
So yeah, we're just gonna reel this up. I mean, this has been an awesome episode. So I've got one question per man.
Hit me.
So
do we get different questions or we get the same question?
I'll make them diverse, but they're probably gonna be. It might be the same thing. So, what's like one thing you want to leave with people that are gonna start listening to this, or that are listening right now? What is one thing you want to leave with them?
Broad. I would say that this whole thing couldn't be more appropriate, the title, because I think everybody that's in this industry, nobody has it figured out. And I feel like whether it's huge time, small time, just getting started, photo, video, straight up music, lighting director, whatever it is all a ride. And I feel like, man, as long as you have the passion for it, and as long as this is something that you know you want to do for the rest of your life, man, let it rip. Meet everybody, do it, and I don't know. I just feel like go for it, because there's so many people that I feel like don't.
Yeah.
That'd be. I would just say, embody the ride. Make sure that you know that there's gonna be ups and downs. Just hang with it if it's something you love.
Golly, I'm tearing up. No, I don't cry. I'm just kidding. That's impressive though. Like that's awesome, and that's like the whole gist of this whole thing. Tanner, I told you I wasn't gonna do this to you, but
Oh, God.
you need to leave one little broad statement to everybody too. Same thing.
All right, same thing. I'd say mine's very similar. I think take the leap and believe in yourself a little
Cool.
bit. I think from my first, I've had a 9-to-5 job for all of about 6 months in my whole life, and I was so miserable. I came home and I told Shelby, my now wife, and I was like, "Hey, I gotta get back in the music industry. I don't
Yeah.
know how we're gonna pay rent on this new condo we just got, but like we'll figure it out."
Do it.
She let me do that, started Rise Music Group, and then just a few months ago, she got the bright idea from Trenton over here that she needed to quit her job and start working for me.
Inspiration.
And yeah, a few months later, she
Sorry
was
about
like, yeah, well, it's been a blessing, so thank
Yeah.
you long term. But finally made the jump for her too. So
That's awesome.
while you
The ride. She joined the ride.
you freak out and like hope it works, but so far it's working. So just have a little faith in yourself.
That's awesome. Well, cool things to come with this podcast.
Love it, boys.
Uh,
Thanks for having us.
hey, thank y'all for coming on.
Absolutely.
This is gonna be more regular. Hopefully, we start getting some sponsors on it. Hopefully, this thing blows up because I can talk to a tree. Hey, you're on the ride. RIDE with Lane Smith, your host. Thanks, dudes. Appreciate it.
See it.
Good to see you.